cocoa beans called Nacional variety. They're exclusively in Ecuador. And the reason is because cocoa originated in that area, but many hybrid varieties were created in order to be more disease resistant. Those are most of the cocoa beans in the world, especially in Western Africa, because they didn't have cocoa over there. The thing that they forgot about when they made the hybrids was flavor. They were so worried about disease resistance and high productivity and easy to harvest that they didn't include flavor. And so it's a lot like the tomatoes you get at the grocery store that just are kind of have no flavor versus the ones you get out of your garden that are just full of flavor.
Do you have a story of maybe some trials and tribulations that you went through in developing this business?
One of the biggest things.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we can discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and itself. Today, we have award-winning chocolate maker, Barbara Wilson of Mindo Chocolate, is here to tell her story of how Mindo is bringing authentic chocolate from Mindo, Ecuador to Dexter, Michigan. Excited to talk with Barbara about her amazing chocolate and the one-of-a-kind bean-to-bar chocolate classes that she's holding. Thank you so much, Barbara, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you live in a very unique world, right? We see chocolate every single day. Every grocery store has it right at the checkout line because we all know as Americans and across the world, chocolate is one of the best specialties we could possibly have. But we normally hear of chocolatiers or someone that makes specialty chocolate, but you're a lot different. Your story reaches all back to the roots of how chocolate is created. And I'm going through some of your social media and through your website. You guys do it a bit differently by really being cautious and aware of the nature and the structure of chocolate and how some forests are being destroyed, and you guys are supporting that. There's many amazing things that you guys are doing as a company to not only make great chocolate, but also do it in the right way. Can you give us a little bit of background of how this whole thing came together, how it started, and your mission that you guys are on as you're growing this business?
Well, it's funny because we didn't really plan to have a business at all. And we had a business, an auto repair business in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we ended up going to Ecuador to build a little house to live in the winter. That was the plan. And then, well, I was married to a serial entrepreneur, and he, the answer to every problem is start a new business. We had the problem of we wanted fast internet. And we still had the business running here in Michigan. And we decided to build a little internet cafe so that we could get inexpensive internet, which didn't exist in Mindo. Mindo is a tiny little town in the mountains of Ecuador. It's about 2 hours from Quito, which is the capital. And it was very isolated until about maybe 20 years ago. Didn't even have a good road to get into the town. So they didn't have internet. And when we went there, we wanted internet to stay in contact with our business here in Michigan. And so the quote was $750 a month. And we said, well, that's too much money. I had been roasting my own coffee for probably about 8 years at that point, and I learned everything to know about coffee. And so we started a little cafe. And we got an espresso machine and started serving espresso drinks. And then I wanted something to serve with those drinks. And I decided, well, everybody loves chocolate and brownies are easy to make. So I started making brownies. And I couldn't find the chocolate that I liked in Ecuador. And I knew Ecuador is famous for having what they call fine flavor beans, which they add to chocolate in order to make the flavor a little bit better. And they have a small percentage usually of fine flavor beans. And then most of the other beans come from Western Africa where they're extremely inexpensive. And so that's usually how big companies make their chocolate. And so I had heard this and I thought, why can't I find good quality cocoa beans or good quality chocolate in Ecuador? And so I started looking around and learning all about chocolate. And I found out that they ship all of the really high quality beans to Europe and the United States. And so we went searching for cocoa beans, and we wanted to try making chocolate. And we went to this cooperative that makes their own chocolate. They start with the beans and make their own chocolate. And it was a cooperative of cocoa farmers. And the day that we went there, the farmers were bringing in bags of cocoa pods and they were cutting them open and going through the selection process of the good quality beans. And then they showed us how they ferment the beans and dry the beans. And when we left there, we bought a 53-pound bag of cocoa beans from them and took it back to our place in Mindo. And we made chocolate for the first time. And we just roasted it in our coffee roaster, peeled it, had a little shell on it. You have to peel off the beans. And then we did that by hand, and we ground it in a little grain mill, and it came out, and it was, it was gritty. It was no sugar at all. And I tasted a little bit of it, and it was still the best chocolate I had ever tasted in my life. And I was really blown away by the flavor, the complex flavor, and how delicious it was. And then I was kind of angry that we were eating not very good chocolate most of our lives. So I started making the brownies with that chocolate, and they became very popular. The regular customers that we had already eating the brownies, were like, "Poof, this is, so delicious." And one of them said it was a religious experience eating our brownies. And we kind of got interested in that, started reading all about the new craft chocolate movement in the United States at that time. That was 2009. And there weren't even 20 companies in the whole country, and there weren't that many worldwide. So I got excited about that idea. I was thinking of like the craft, coffee roasting movement, the craft beer movement, and we're just at the very, very beginning of the craft chocolate movement, and I got excited about that idea. So we took off. I just started making chocolate bars, wrapping them in aluminum foil, putting probably a piece of masking tape and putting a price on it and putting them on the counter, and people started buying it, a lot of it. And then I came back here to Michigan, and just got a little machine, started making batches of chocolate just to learn about it. And people wanted to buy it, and it really grew all by itself. There was no business plan, no plan to have another business, a chocolate business. It just happened very naturally.
What an incredible story, and such a great testament for the entrepreneurs and the business owners listening to this, that if you build a good product, if you build a good service, it does sell itself and build. But the first step that I love is just your desire for why and your interest that you have in something, and then the ability to deep dive into it, being able to say, well, I have an interest in this. Let me dive into chocolate and completely understand it, and not go through the path that I think a lot of young kids are going today, where they go to TikTok, they go to Instagram, they try to find out what's trending and information that way, which we never know if it's real or fake. You went to the actual source and started understanding a little bit better. But help me and the listeners understand. You mentioned two different types of cocoa beans, one from Africa and then one from Ecuador. Are they totally different types of beans? Like if I tried your chocolate, it would be something like I've never experienced it before.
Yeah, definitely would, but it has a lot to do with the variety of cocoa beans, but it also has a lot to do with the process that we take it through from beginning to end. And so the cocoa beans that we buy are called Nacional variety, and they're exclusively in Ecuador. And the reason is because cocoa originated in that area, and it didn't transplant out to other areas, that specific variety. But many hybrid varieties were created in order to be more disease resistant and, produce more pods and bigger seeds. And those are most of the cocoa beans in the world. And especially in the Western Africa, because they didn't have cocoa over there. All of those were transplanted around the world. And the thing that they forgot about when they made the hybrids was flavor. They were so worried about disease resistance and high productivity and easy to harvest that they didn't include flavor. And so it's a lot like the tomatoes you get at the grocery store that just are kind of have no flavor versus the ones you get out of your garden that are just full of flavor. That's like the difference between, most cocoa beans and the ones that we use for our chocolate.
So are you still with your chocolates? Is it a lot less sugar? Is there any sugar? Because I know on for regular chocolate, they have to add an immense level of sugar to that just to get flavors. Is yours completely different than that?
Yeah, we use as little sugar as possible. I can show you. I have a visual crop that I use to show people the difference if you'd like me to show it to you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be on YouTube. Yeah,
All
I'd
right.
love to
So I like to take these two and I do demos and events and things. So a Hershey's bar is what I use for an example, uses this much sugar and this much cocoa beans. It's about 10% cocoa, 10, 11% cocoa beans.
We're not talking about in a single bar, right? That there's not that much sugar.
That's a lot of bars.
Yeah, okay.
Just in general, the percentage. And this got mixed up a little bit, but this is ours. This is 77%. That much cocoa to this much sugar. So you can see the difference. It's like a
And
whole different
your
product.
cocoa just like a normal dark chocolate. Yeah, it's vastly different. If you listen to this right now on Spotify, you got to check out the YouTube to see the difference between. I mean, it's just night and day. One jar is completely white, the other jar is full of actual cocoa beans. Now, I know that dark chocolate has a lot of good healing factors. It helps with circulation. It helps with a few things internally. I don't have all the details. I'm not a doctor, but I know it's better for you than just say regular milk chocolate. Now, are your beans having that same quality? Do they have the same value to the body?
Yeah, cocoa beans have a lot of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory effect, and so they're very healthy. And if you add a lot of sugar, they're not that kind of ruins the health benefits. But when you're a lot of cocoa, you get those health benefits, and there are many benefits to reducing inflammation, and antioxidants are also very good for many things.
How counterproductive is that? You take a bean that can help with inflammation and pack it full with a product that gives you inflammation like sugar. It's insane. So I love this. So you started off by just we wanted to have fast internet. So you go through the process of opening up a coffee shop. Well, we need something to serve in the coffee shop. So you start making brownies. And then you obviously with an entrepreneurial mindset, you said your husband has it too, but the desire for you to have your own personal Kaizen, your own personal process of improvement that you're trying to get better and better. You're like, I want these brownies to be a higher quality. How do I make good chocolate? And then you come across this path of finding these beans and developing chocolate. So tell me, what does the business look like today? Like what you said that you didn't plan on selling, but it started selling at mass. So what does the business actually look like today? Are you in multiple different stores? Are you distributing? I know that you say in Dexter, Michigan, you have some special stuff going on there, which I'd like you to dive into. But what overall are you distributing nationwide? What does it look like? Could I buy some of this chocolate if I wanted to?
Yes, you can. Yeah, so the way it looks now is we have the little cafe in Mindo, Ecuador grew into a 120-seat restaurant, and I came from a background of health education, so I learned how to do kind of big education programs, and I just naturally went into giving tours, and Mindo is one of the top birding spots in the world, so we get a lot of birders coming in, a lot of tourists coming in. So I thought, well, they need something to do, something else to do in the afternoons. They go birding and they have breakfast and then they need something else to do. So I thought we'll do chocolate tours. So we started doing tours and they were really popular. And they also educated uh, everybody about chocolate and how chocolate's made. And they were really excited to learn that. So the tours took off like wildfire. And before COVID, about 12,571 people came, and the 2 years before COVID. And we had to expand, started doing them once a week, and we had to expand to 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the tours because they were so popular. And then it teaches everybody about what's different about our product, and it teaches everybody about chocolate so that they have a better understanding of what chocolate is and the pros and cons of chocolate and Ecuadorian chocolate. And they just learn everything and then they do tastings and then they buy chocolate too. And so that kind of drove and drives that business down there. That business now we have 20 employees and it's still running. I have two daughters, luckily. One is living in Ecuador and one is she's running both businesses here and in Ecuador, but she's there sourcing the beans, making sure we get good quality beans, making sure that everything's done correctly, the fermentation, the drying, the roasting, and then they make them into cocoa nibs and ship them up here. And I have a little commercial kitchen in my house.
Oh wait, that's awesome. I didn't mean to interrupt, but That bringing the family in and then your daughter loving the process and deciding to dive in and help run the business is awesome. And then you found an efficient way because you said there was a problem with shipping them before because of disease and things of that nature, but you have found an efficient way to actually get that high quality into Michigan, which not a very easy state to get high quality materials from out of country in, you know?
Right. That was one of the harder parts of the process. Even in Ecuador, we had to work very hard to find farmers that would work with us and give us the quality product that we wanted. They were used to throwing in all of the moldy, rotten beans into the bags and selling them as bulk cocoa. And Ecuador's reputation for chocolate cocoa beans was going down. It was the number one in the world in the early 1900s, and then it went down to, because they weren't giving us really good quality. It's so hard to have cocoa beans that don't get moldy. There are a couple of diseases that they get, and we really, we don't want those in our chocolate, but they were mixing them all together with the bulk beans, and we insisted, or we asked them to separate them. And they're like, we're used to getting paid for all the beans, and so we said, okay, we'll pay for them if you could just separate them. And then eventually they just started selling those moldy, rotten beans as bulk beans, which really it's kind of disturbing, but
Probably still getting used by Hershey's or another chocolate company, right?
for sure, yeah.
What a
Because if you shop just price, if you're looking for just price, then that's what you're going to get, the lowest quality.
Yeah, and listen, all the listeners out there that haven't been to overseas and haven't tried chocolate in Europe, I was mind blown by the quality of chocolate in Europe compared to what we're having in the US. And still over there, they're still using beans from Africa and still has heavy amount of sugar in it. It may be a little bit less than what we have in America, but in general, the quality was vastly different. And this is even better. So what do you have? You have a commercial kitchen in Michigan. What else are you doing out in the States?
Well, we have a little store in Ann Arbor where we serve coffee drinks and drinking chocolates, super popular. We have iced cocoa in the summer, super popular. And then we make cookies and things like that too. And that's going well. We just got our license to have seating. And so that's moving along. And that area of town just happens to be really boosting up at this moment. So that's a really good thing. And we're about to add, hopefully, ice cream for this summer.
Very nice, very nice. That sounds like the perfect place for me and my wife. You got chocolate chip cookies for me, ice cream for her. We would be a happy couple there. Do you have plans? So now that, obviously you said you started this, you didn't have a business in mind. You wanted to fulfill a need that you had to support a structure that you were building in Ecuador, but now you have a full-fledged business, right? It's not only how many seat restaurant you said in Ecuador? 250?
120.
And 20. Is that serving full meals? Are you having like full dinner and everything there now?
Yep.
Awesome. Do you guys have some crazy chocolate desserts there?
Well, we do have some desserts. They rotate around. We're doing brownies and the cookies. Those are the most popular. We also make ice cream, and we have like affogatos and things like that. And we have some dishes. Like we have a chicken dish that has 100% chocolate in it. So it's not sweet, but it's chocolate. And that one thing I really love about that idea is it kind of expands people's minds about what chocolate is. There's no reason why it needs to be sweet. It
Mm.
just, could be a savory ingredient. And I'd like to see more of that happening where people are using it as a savory ingredient. It's
Cho-
really delicious in all kinds of different things. Like in spaghetti sauce, you put a little bit of 100% chocolate, and it just kind of makes it a lot more complex and interesting.
You deserve a Willy Wonka factory. That I'm hearing all the concepts that you have here. Chocolate and chicken is just it's vastly different, but you're right. I cooked for many, many years and 100% chocolate has nothing of the flavor texture, the flavor structure that you do from milk chocolate or sweetened chocolate with sugar. Didn't think about adding that, but definitely bringing a new perspective of what you could do once you find high quality product and you can understand how to get the best out of it. really powerful. For the entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this right now, what you're hearing is a story of progression and development, of constant improvement in her practice, right? Moving from step by step, even though she wasn't really looking to build a business, she found a strive, found a product that was highly successful, and then able to use it in ways that people wouldn't even imagine, right? I would never imagine putting chocolate with chicken, but being able to open that and then using that and her knowledge of event structuring to put together something that not only feeds people and keeps them alive, right? That's what we need to do as a restaurant owner, but also educates them and supports them on the knowledge of what could be. Because a lot of the things that the agreements we make with ourselves as entrepreneurs, as individuals, as consumers, are not always accurate, right? So love hearing all of this, Barbara, and breaking this down. Where do you see your business going specifically with Mindo Chocolate in the next, say, 2 to 3 years? Are you guys going to try to get into major distributors? Or are you going to be selling online? I see on your website now you do have some products for sale online, but what's the goal? Where do you see the company going in the next 2 years?
I would say at this point now we're 15 years old. So I would want to have a sort of a really strong but slow growth to continue building a nice solid foundation. I wouldn't want it to go too fast because that can really kill your business if you try to grow it too quickly. So, and we're getting a really nice steady growth for the last few years. COVID was a little bumpy, but we did okay. It turns out people like to eat chocolate when they're really stressed out or unhappy. So that wasn't too bad. And we really beefed up our online sales, and we sell to a couple of businesses here in this area that are all local products. And I think that's the direction of the future. I really do think it's the best thing that we can do is try to use as many local products as we can. So these stores are really great. You walk in there, you know everything's local. The choice of products keeps expanding. You know, people are making pottery and glass items and soaps and cheeses and just all kinds of really cool stuff. And it's all the kind that we do, where we focus on quality and having an ethical, and responsible, environmentally responsible business at the same time. And that's what a lot of the local businesses, that's what they're interested in too. So if more and more people do that, I think it's good for everybody.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, especially with the news that are coming out with some of the stuff that's been added into these chains and restaurants. Even like I'll call out Chick-fil-A. I was a Chick-fil-A fan forever. And the next thing you know, there's contraceptives inside of Chick-fil-A, right? So there's, oh yeah, that one never. Yeah, well, that one got released a few months ago, right? So they're all of these franchise concepts, they have a focus of revenue. And as a business owner, listen to this. Yes, you have to focus on revenue, but you define your business. You decide how ethically driven you want to be. You decide if you want your profit margin to be 80%, but you're lying to people. Is that really the person, the business that you want to represent? And that's what a lot of these companies are doing. But I couldn't agree with you more. Going local and supporting local based individual companies that are they're pulling the food from the local area. They're making the pottery at home. They're doing something that is unique and truly one of a kind, is what I think people will search for more and more and more as everything becomes more commercialized and monopolized across the food industry. So I love that. I have to ask you, obviously 15 years of success in this business. You guys have grown it from a small idea that didn't even involve chocolate in the first place, but you've seen this constant progression, and I've hit on it a few times so far in this podcast. What do you do? How do you develop a mindset that gets you to constantly push yourself to do the next thing? Is it just who you are as an individual? Is a certain practice that you're going through? What do you do to, what we would say, find your Kaizen, find your constant improvement of where you live in both your business and your personal life?
Well, I think it is partly who I am, but also I think in school I learned about continuous quality improvement, and I loved that idea. When I was in college, I studied a little bit of management and administration. I was a public health major, and my major was health education. So I have that background that makes me want to only provide healthy things for people. And that's part of it. But I personally want to eat delicious things. I want to drink delicious coffee. I want to eat delicious chocolate. I want to eat delicious food. And I don't like to eat a lot of things, or I don't like to eat chemicals at all, or things that are non food ingredients. And things like soy. and some of those other things that they, at least the soy emulsifier that they put in chocolate, it really doesn't taste very good, but it's in almost all chocolate. And so those kind of things I kind of get away from. And when I was health educator before I did this, I would always tell, the patients, just read the ingredients. If you don't know what it is, don't eat it. So so I was preaching that for years. So I want, and that's the way I do it. That's the way I have always done it is I look and I don't, eat things. So I don't know what they are. And I don't do any artificial colors or any artificial, like preventives or any of that kind of stuff. People can walk into my store and trust that they don't have to read the ingredients. They can trust that it's going to be good quality and not have any, weird things in it. Yeah, and there are a lot of people like we're gluten-free completely. The kitchen is gluten-free, and we do a lot of vegan items. We have some vegan cookies that are like so good. And so it's kind of a place where people go to get a little bit different type of food. And we're going to do the ice cream will be plant-based.
Okay, that's very
That's kind of unique. Yeah, when cashew ice cream is so delicious. It's really creamy. So we're gonna work on getting some, making some recipes of cashew and chocolate, of course. And I'm excited about that.
awesome. Barbara, I only have one more question for you, but I want to hit on something before we go to that. Your bean to bar chocolate classes. Can you hit on, do you have that in Ecuador and in Michigan? Where is that holding? Can you give us a little breakdown on those classes?
We have mostly here in Michigan for the classes themselves, although we do classes in Ecuador, and we do both that make so you're learning to make chocolate from beginning to end is something that we have done almost every year, except we stopped during COVID. And we're working on getting back into that where we can have people, they were coming from all over the world to take this class because there weren't any other ones that existed at that time. The reason I started doing that is because I wanted to take a class on how to make chocolate. I couldn't find one anywhere. So I thought, well, then I'm gonna have to start teaching them. So I did. I started teaching them in Ecuador. It was really cool because I had people from every country you can imagine all over. And it was really exciting to have them coming to the classes. Did I answer your question?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, the classes, and that's something that I think is a part of who you are, right? For a golden nugget that we can pull out of this so far is that every single topic that you have brought up that you said I couldn't find it or I couldn't get it or it wasn't high enough quality, it was a motivational piece for you to go get it. And that's such a strong thing for entrepreneurs to hear that the world is an oyster. It's a huge opportunity for everybody out there. And you have to make sure that if you see a problem in the market, it's an opportunity for you to go solve it. It's an opportunity for you to find something new and start a business that now 15 years in is probably much larger than you ever expected it to be, and doing an incredible job and going from the chocolate to the classes to distributing it now in Michigan, and then finding an opportunity to find your strive and who you guys really are to represent your business and be able to, again, like the ice cream, like you're going to bring in ice cream, but you're not bringing in any type of ice cream. You're going to make sure it's health conscious. You're going to make sure it's the right type of ice cream to fit the mold of your business. And for the entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this right now, that is how you build a brand. You build a brand by having strong guidelines of who you are as a business and standing true to that no matter what, right? If the cost is a little bit higher, it's okay because it's a part of who you are and it'll identify you. And that's how people really find trust in a business like yours, is the consistency that we represent X and we're going to do that across the board, no matter if we're in Ecuador, if we're in Michigan, but you're going to make sure that it stands true to the values that you have. And I think that is so powerful, Barbara. One final question for you. For the entrepreneurs and the business owners that are listening to this right now, they're always trying to pull knowledge from successful individuals like yours. Do you have a story of maybe some trials and tribulations that you went through in developing this business, or a lesson that you could pass down to some of our listeners after running this business for a successful time that would kind of give them some guidance on how they can improve and how they could shift their mindset so that they can go after these challenges as opportunities and not so much as a deterrent for them?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one of the biggest things that everybody needs to know, and I know that a lot of people know this already, but you make a mistake, you just get right back up and brush yourself off and keep going and you have to be really persistent and not get down when things don't go well. It's like a roller coaster. And there are very high highs and very low lows, and that's for everybody. The other thing is a story. I mean, we were very persistent, and I think that I've learned over the years to how to solve very difficult problems, and being persistent and being willing to work really hard to figure out the solution to all kinds of really hard problems. And I actually feel good about that because I learned how to solve really difficult problems, and now I feel really competent in that area. But just as an example, when we went looking for coffee, we wanted to find the best coffee for our little coffee shop in Ecuador. And we started asking people, where's the best coffee? We ended up in a coffee shop in Quito, and they said, well, we buy these beans at this farm. So we went to go to the farm, and we rode a bus. And when we got off the bus, they said there aren't any taxis or anything there. And the place we were going was like a couple-hour drive back into the mountains. We just went. Now, maybe we're stupid. We just went. This is in Ecuador, in the mountains, no buses or anything. And we just started walking to go to this place. And we walked and walked. And then finally somebody picked us up and gave us a ride. And she's told us a story that she was a sugar farmer and she had illegal alcohol stills. And it was an interesting story. And she let us off and somebody else picked us up and took us farther. We had no idea if we were going to find our way back before dark, where we were going to sleep if we didn't make it, what we were going to do. We just went on this wild adventure to find the best coffee in Ecuador. And we did find this little research station that it was a French company, and they were studying coffee and trying to design the best tasting coffee. And the manager of the farm, he showed us everything about coffee, and we learned so much. I still drink coffee, that same coffee, 15 years later, because it's so good.
What an incredible story. And we're talking about the jungles of Ecuador here. We're not talking about the Northeast where there's nothing to worry about. There's a lot to worry about in the jungles of Ecuador.
Yeah.
But persistency and a pursuit for knowledge is what I'm hearing across the board, and not letting anything slow you down from a 3-hour walk to the fact that you couldn't find certain attributes or certain things. And I'm assuming as you went through the process of actually creating this chocolate, you ran into a whole slew of problems that you had to overcome and challenges they had to put in place. But from just the short interview you've had so far, I can promise that to the listeners, if you have this attitude, nothing will slow you down. You might hit a little speed bump, but you will get to the goal that you want to achieve if you have the persistency, if you have the desire, and you have the drive. Barbara, thank you so much for the time today. I really think it was incredible. What you've built has been awesome. I have a buddy that lives in Michigan, and he's actually close to you. I'm going to tell him about your location. I'm going to ask him to get me some chocolate. And I would really love to try it. If any of the listeners want to try your chocolate or find out more information about you, where can they find more info on you?
MindoChocolate.com. They can order it. You can order it online and we'll ship it to you. So
Perfect.
that's no problem.
The best chocolate shipped right to your door. Barbara, thank you so much. The information for Mindo Chocolate is going to be below in the descriptions. Check it out. If you guys have finished the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Barbara, thank you so much for your time. And for the listeners, we'll see you on the next one.